really excited to meet, bunch of budding entrepreneurs. So I'm looking forward to the next 1 hour. Hopefully, we can make it interactive and love to get your questions answered as well. Very briefly, we are a distributor of insurance products, and of course, now we've also started distributing other products too in the fintech domain, loans, credit cards, and so on. So, we are basically a distributor of financial products. And what is special about what we did was we took a B2B2C model, which is what we're going to talk about today. But essentially, we built out an app-enabled network of agents all over the country. About 350,000 people we have licensed under our license. This network is now only second to LIC, which has about 1 million odd. That's about 10 lakh agents. And we were able to do it in a much faster way using technology, using the power of mobile apps and internet data to and also many other things in terms of onboarding, enabling them, and so on. We can talk about some of those things if you're curious. But basically, we built out this network pretty quickly, and we also enabled digital transactions for the seller. So essentially, if you look at the world, before us, the agent was typically tied to a single insurance company and trying to sell the product of that company, but competing with the online brokers and so on who are giving choice to the customer. And in that environment, competing was becoming difficult. Would become difficult. It hasn't become, it's not that bigger deal, but it would become difficult. And the agent therefore was looking. We realized that is the opportunity, and we can build out, if we can give them these options in a single platform, along with taking care of some of the other things that that particular user segment needs around training, marketing, around all the management of various processes around the in the whole insurance journey, including claims and so on. Then we can give them a really strong value proposition, by virtue of which they will come and sort of work with us, and which is what we were right about that particular thing playing out pretty much in that same way. There were things we thought we would do which we didn't, or we weren't able to do, and I can talk about that as well in terms of a more tightly, let's say, integrated B2C, B2B2C play. Some of those things we ran into a bit of challenges, but today through this network we distribute more than $600 million US of premiums. It's a very large network. We're growing 70% YOY. And in context of the large size of the market, we are still, in the single digit percentage points in terms of how much of it we've been able to capture. And there are good tailwinds supporting our growth going forward. We also then moved into another version of B2B2C, which is basically working with banks to enable them for insurance distribution. So it's more of a B2B like business, but there are things we are doing which are B2B2C type things, like embedded insurance and so on, and can talk more about that as well. So that's kind of how the journey of Turtlemint has been. Into the topic, so one of the questions, like even we had, was what should we call this model? Is it B2B? Is it B2C? Something in between. I don't know who coined this term of B2B2C, but it seemed to fit well with what we are doing, right? So essentially, when you're doing a B2C business, your customer is the end customer. When you're doing B2B, your end customer is a business. In the B2B2C world, what interestingly happens is you have two customers. You have, of course, the end customer who who's consuming your services, and you have your channel partner. So in our case, the agent also became a customer, right? In fact, at some point, in some ways, the larger customer in our picture was the agent, and then the end consumer was also there, but maybe in a sort of smaller form in terms of our uh, focus on it. And I think this can differ from business to business and what your product category is and so on. But for me, the defining sort of feature, one of the defining features of a B2B2C business model is typically you are dealing with two different customers, one who's helping you acquire the end customer, uh, and then of course the end customer herself. The other thing about B2B2C and how do you differentiate, say, B2B2C versus B2B, right? If you have a B2B partner, let's say you're providing them a product and service, they will use your product and service, but what they're giving to the customer is something totally different, right? So, like you're providing a CRM to a customer, or you're providing any other kind of service. The end customer may be the product that they are selling may be very different, right? And therefore, your brand, there is no reason actually for your brand to be pushed further down to the customer, right? In the B2B2C model, what happens is your brand gets pushed down to the customer as well, right? So if you look at our own example, or we can look at other examples as well in your domains. If you look at our example itself, we have the agent who's our link, to the customer. The agent does the job of advising, on the insurance sale, and insurance is pretty much a push product, right? So there's a lot of nudging and motivation also is a very important role that the agent plays, right? So there is an interaction that the agent is having with the customer. Uh, uh, but when he does that, he's also uh, using Turtlemint's platform to talk about what products there are, what options there are. Turtlemint becomes the licensed broker on that sale. So the regulated entity that has made the sale to the customer is Turtlemint. So there's a licensing aspect. There is a consumer experience as well. We have a consumer app as well, which the customer can download to manage policies and claims and so on, right? So you can see in this case, both the agent who was our partner, we call them digital partners actually. So our partner and our brand, right, or our both of us were in the face of the customer, right? And if that is happening, it's very likely what you have is a B2B2C business model. If your product is not really seen, I mean, there are lots of wholesalers and so on, right? They keep moving goods and services from a manufacturer to a retailer or a distributor, right? But their brand is not really needed to be even seen by the end consumer, right? And in that case, it's more of a wholesaler kind of model rather than a B2B2C model. So I think that's an important distinction. I think you also need to think about when you're thinking about your business in this context. I mean, there is nothing, B2B2C comes with its own set of challenges and issues, right? Which a wholesaler model may not, and you may actually be very happy. It might be just a better model in your case to do just become a wholesaler or a B2B kind of business, right? So you have to think about uh, what are the realities of your business and how does that business fit in the larger ecosystem and the value chain, and then you can decide how whether you want to you could structure the brand the business basically as a B2B business as well, right, while working with partners. And you got to think about whether that's what you want to do or whether you really want to do a B2C play. Ultimately, the optionality you get with the B2B2C play is you can also be a B2C player at some point at a certain scale, right? Which you may not get, or some of the work you do to be a B2B2C player, you can use that to also start a B2C channel, for example, right? So there are the path is easier, but there are also challenges like channel conflict and so on that one may have to deal with if one starts out on a B2C play. So I hope there are any questions at this point. I can take a pause.
I have a question. So Anand, I've seen that the Turtlemint provides the multiple insurance services. So when you started this, like insurance market is already governed by a lot of companies. Some of the couple of new companies also came in the market, like Echo, who's doing digital, and all other insurance companies. So given that environment, how you strategize your this strategy for B2B and B2C, and how you see your moat over there?
Yeah. So we really believed that in the customer buying journey today, in majority of the cases, it's going to be driven through an advisor or an agent, right? And we didn't see, this was about 8 years ago when we started, that we didn't see this becoming a pure digital online purchase category, because the consumer pull in this category is is non-existent actually. It's very low. So customers don't come and search for these products, or one, even if they come, they get confused. They're not able to make a decision on their own. So I'm talking about majority of people. There are, of course, a small sliver of customers who may go and buy themselves, but the majority of them are not able to make that decision. So we strongly believed that the advisor plays an important role, and then we looked at what are some of the large segments in this space where advisors are playing a role, and basically two segments that came up were the agent channel, which is about 65% of the distribution today, and the banks and OEMs, okay, car manufacturers. These are the major large channels in the insurance distribution value chain today, and so we focused on we're quite well entrenched in India on the two of them, which is banks and agents. We lead in terms of the business we do through these. So that was, so we looked at the market size to answer your question. We looked at what the opportunity for play was in these channels. So with the agent channel, I already told you, like they were looking for comparisons. Some of them were taking multiple licenses and trying to offer that, but in a very clunky way, because they would have to use 2 3 systems. They still didn't have an integrated experience for the customer. It was not very digital, but they were trying to do some of that, right? Which is what was a clue that that's something that was important from their standpoint. And so we decided to focus on that. We felt the same thing could happen in banks as well, but we had to the opportunity came for us through a regulatory move. Actually, it was a regulator made about 4 5 years ago, where he said that, look, banks, you have to offer choice to your customer. If you look, prior to this, banks went through a lot of pain on insurance, a lot of mis-selling and so on, right? And then the regulator cracked down heavily and said, look, you have to offer choice. Customers must have at least 3 options. Once they did that, then no longer could they, so they were typically using the technology system of the insurer that they had tied up with, right? So they didn't have to build their own systems. They never built. Some of them tried, but they were not able to do it. But they didn't have to build. They just used the insurer systems and did their work, or their people, even their people actually. So it was like pretty much very little work that the banks were doing. But the moment they had to offer 3 choices to the customer, they had to have their own system. They had to have a common experience for their branch staff, their customers on net banking and mobile banking or whatever. And so the opportunity opened up for a solution like this.
Interesting. Uh, Anand, if you had to take a step back, like your career, I mean, you started, IIT Bombay, then Chicago, you came back to India, you have been with Yahoo, then Quicker. That was always the online industry, I believe, right?
Yeah,
Uh, Again, insurance was really not one of the hot sectors when you started, and everyone was talking about payments, lending. So you
yeah,
took a very, very contrarian path, the road not taken. Insurance, I will not do it online,
yeah.
like what helped you, what gave you that faith that this is going to work? I mean, it would have been very difficult for me, at least at that time, to think of to go so much against the grain.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think couple of things, that really helped shape it up. One was, of course, my co-founder Dhirendra comes from the insurance industry, so he had a lot of deep understanding of this category, and what we have seen, in this particular category, uh, and maybe that's true even in many of the fintech categories like loans and so on. The understanding of the ecosystem, how things work, what are the what are customer behaviors, typical customer behaviors, partner behaviors, and so on. The network in the ecosystem with the carriers and all of that actually plays a fairly important role in moving faster. I think if you didn't have it, I don't think you cannot do it, but it will take you much longer and more friction to deal with. I think that was something uh, that having Dhirendra network in place and all of that really helped us, I think. So one was that. The other was also a few personal experiences I had. So I had lived in the US for 7-8 years, so I was more aware insurance customer than a typical Indian would be. So I had a property insurance. I had bought some of these insurance products that even today, very few people in India actually buy. And there was a claim, for example, I had to do on a property insurance, and at that point I realized how little I knew. There was a theft in my house, and we had to make a claim. I realized how little I knew, and therefore, a lot of people would know about this particular product. And so digitization, simplification, making it easier to buy, growing the awareness, I think these were clearly opportunities. So I mean, that's how we picked up this particular category.
Very interesting. Like how many agents are working with you right now on Turtlemint, let's say on the platform?
Yeah, like I said, 300,000, 350K
Wow.
are licensed.
But like Anand, like how do you really train these people? Because end of the day, like you said, Turtlemint is also a brand, right? People are seeing
Yeah,
you, but and many of these are not your employees, definitely, right? They end of the day agents.
yeah,
So in such a B2B2C model, how can you ensure the quality? How do you even onboard these people? Like what are some of those checks?
yeah. So it's a great question, and I think the crux of what kind of uh, business you can build, right?
Right.
So and like I said in the very beginning, there are two customers that you ultimately end up dealing with. Uh, when it comes to your sellers, we invested a lot on onboarding journeys, which and there is a regulatory requirement for licensing in terms of training and certain amount of content to be certain hours of content to be consumed,
Yeah.
examination, and so on. So we have that process where every agent that gets onboarded goes through this experience. So we also have an edtech platform. We call it Mint Academy, that they go through in terms of their certification, training, and so on. Right. Second, what we also done is we use recommendation technology to recommend products to the customer, and we look at how faithful the agent has been in terms of ultimately the product that the customer bought. So we monitor that. Of course, there can be deviations because that the tool may not really capture exactly, what the customer may need. Sometimes the agent feels that there's certain brand affinity, for example, that
Right.
that the customer may have, and therefore so we look at that, but we look at that different. We look at that as well, the recommendations and how different is the ultimate product that got bought. We
Okay.
also have other processes. So when in certain products which are certain products which are prone to mis-selling, we don't even offer much
Okay.
of. So Tulips is an example of that, because all kinds of returns are promised when that product is sold. So we stayed away from some of these products. And in some of the life products, we do a lot of verification ourselves, by calling the customer, verifying that what information they have about the product and what information they have provided also to the insurer is all kosher and right, and so on, so that they should not have a bad claims experience in the future. If you've misrepresented on your policy, then the insurer does a lot of due diligence before they pay the claim. They may do more
Right.
than they do at the time of policy
Yeah.
sale. And so it's important for customer to know, be aware of these things. So we do have this kind of monitoring process to ensure that the end customer experience is good. And then on the post sales side of it, so during this whole journey, it's also we support the agent in terms of interacting with the customer. So a lot of
Right.
the collateral, of course, is created by the system. There's WhatsApp shareable, posters, links, information, right, videos, and so on. But after the sale is done, we offer a consumer app
Okay.
for the end customer. They can use it for managing their policies and claims and some other uh, key activities that may be needed. So
Got
that also elevates the professional level of the agent as well,
Right.
because he's different from the typical agent who's just disappears after giving you the policy, or here the customer gets a better experience too, and we get more visibility also into what the customer is doing.
Understood. Let's say when the customer has a problem, do they call Turtlemint or will they, call their agent? Like, what's the breakup of that? How does that work?
Yeah, so right now it's a 50-50, I would say, in terms of who they would call. So either they may call the agent, they may call us. Sometimes also they call the insurer directly. So that also happens.
Okay.
So, for example, in a car claim, they may land up at a garage, right? And then on the policy it says whatever insurer name, and then
Right.
the garage guy may just directly start interacting with the insurer, right?
Okay.
So it can happen at either of those three levels.
Got it. Uh, I'll come to my next question. Like I think you already mentioned, like when you were in the US, I mean, you buy a lot of people who are outside India sometimes buy a lot more insurance. They're much more aware about it.
Yeah.
The usefulness of insurance. Do you think insurance is still underpenetrated in India? I mean, like, what can we do to increase that penetration today?
Yeah, it's massively underpenetrated, right? Look, I think, for example, everybody needs uh, term cover, which is say between 10 to 20 times their income, right? That you can, whatever you've saved, you can reduce from that, but towards retirement, okay, you can sort of reduce from that. But the if you look at typically what sort of term covers people buy, they're still in the sub 1 CR kind of,
Right.
just, and most of these people have incomes which are significantly more, right? So there are people who can afford insurance, but they are not buying enough of it, because over a period of time that sum, because of inflation and so on, is going to be much lower than what it is right
Right.
now, right? So there is under insurance, a lot of under insurance, even when it's bought, a lot of insurance being bought as an investment product
Okay.
rather than as a risk. So when you look at risk covers both in health and life, the amount of risk coverage that is available is lower. In health insurance, I think, I mean, broadly, in most of the many of the countries, health insurance covers for your outpatient as well.
Okay.
So in India, I think $70 billion worth of health spends, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Of that, only $6 odd billion is actually covered by insurance, is paid through by insurance, right? So it's less than 10% in terms of health insurance as a payer for services. And this number has actually grown only grew quite rapidly during COVID years. Pre-COVID, it was even worse, much
Right.
worse.
Right. Got it. So sometimes, Anand, let's say if I have only a 2x cover, right, and you're trying to sell me a 10x cover, don't how does this happen? Like, I'm sure a lot of people who are in wealth management also, sometimes they will see that this guy is doing a mistake, then does it seem like you're pushing a sale, or, how will you, how do the agents, cover this gap?
Yeah, so they have their own, some of them, the experienced guys have their own techniques, right, in terms of how they actually convince a customer. On the platform, we offer certain tools,
Right.
like figuring out what, we offer financial planning
Hmm.
tools to
Okay.
the agent, and they can use that to build their case.
Hmm.
We offer posters, we offer, like Instagram story type of content formats, videos. So for them to be able to tell a story to the customer about why that product is important or should be important, or why they should look at more cover and so on.
Hi, Anand. I was looking at your site in the morning and I saw that MSD is your brand ambassador. So I wanted to understand, did it pay off on a long run, the expectation that you are having, and what was the key reason when you thought of getting a brand, investment of this kind?
So MSC has been really great for us. I mean, our in our core, I mean, let's say, so we have again serve two customers, right? The end customer and the agent. So in our agent segment, we've become the Dhoniwali company, which is a great position for us to be in, because he is, massively trusted and respected as a professional, right? So his brand kind of rubs off. His those values rub off, and in a category like this, which is all about trust. I mean, if once a customer trusts an agent, they are able to, they really will rely on that advice, right? And ask themselves, seek for advice, right? So trust is core of our brand. In fact, this category, and in fact, any fintech category, I would think. And they, so he's worked out really well in terms of that association that we are getting, right, from his brand. In terms of now, how do we use, so now we are not an out and out B2C player, and we don't do, a lot of uh, brand. I mean, we don't really have a B2C focus to run a lot of television ads and so on, right? I mean,
Right.
not building that. I mean, that's not, at least we are not equipped today. Even if we did that, it's not equipped today to give a B2C experience to anyone. So that's where I think some of thought has to be put in terms of how do you do branding, and where do you focus on, why are you doing branding, and what kind of story you should be telling, right? So that it's beneficial to your sellers also. So one of the things that we wanted from the branding was our agents to say, मैं Turtlemint का agent हूँ, right? And that was very important for us.
Right.
The more they say, automatically our brand gets built. So that's how we thought about that as one of the key goals for us. Of course, consumer, we wanted to tell them about some of the nice things, but it was about the agent, and therefore agent features in all our commercials.
Anand, I would like to now, just pick your brains on what do you think are the new opportunities that you're seeing in the insurance industry? Like, where do you think we are going to go from here?
Yeah. So the I think, like maybe the last 7-8 years have been really about building some kind of digital distribution, whether it's in B2C, B2B, embedded models, through APIs and so on, which we've also done. There are other players also who are doing it. So I think those pipelines and rails are in place. I think the biggest opportunity now, in terms of the future, I feel, is in the product creation space.
Okay.
So creating products which are simpler for people to understand, more naturally bought, in a world which has become increasingly digital, e-commerce oriented, and so on, right? Products that maybe are also better integrated with other things you buy, like your gym membership, for example. Can we integrate a health insurance product a lot better, right? So I think some of that, uh, now I feel, is going to be a big opportunity, where insurance is, because insurance is only about, okay, wait, it's used only when I make a claim. uh, it's not really relevant in my day-to-day life, and that's the reason why there is no pull for it. There is no, strong brand affinity, or people always feel somewhat, maybe even cheated about it, right?
Right.
So that can change with this, and couple of things are pushing it in this direction. One is, of course, the whole digitization thing that I talked about. The other is also regulatory changes that are coming about, that are pushing, and some of these haven't yet, crossed the parliament barrier. I mean, they were supposed to happen in this last session. It would have been a huge moment for product innovation in the insurance space, but hopefully they will get done very soon. But these proposed regulations will allow for some of these things which I talked about, which is bundling with benefits, other types of benefits. Now you can do it in some way. It is possible today to do some of it, but it's a little cumbersome, and there are some regulatory challenges in terms of delivering those kinds of products. So I feel product innovation can be a big lever, and we may have a regulatory breakthrough for it as such very soon as well.
So, Anand, my two questions was regarding this acquisition of agents. What is the cost of acquisition of an agent? And the second question was the typical CAC LTV analysis which we do for acquisition of a customer. Do you do similar assessment for acquiring an agent also? Or if yes, how does this work, having two separate CAC LTV norms, one for agent and one for customer?
Yeah, a great question. In fact, we typically just look at CAC LTV for agent, because customer acquisition for us happens by the agent, right? And in some point, once we've acquired acquired a super customer, right? Because that customer is now getting us, once you've got the agent, the customers just keep coming based on their effort. There's no additional cost to us to acquire the end customer. So from a variable cost standpoint, the end customer acquisition is actually happening at zero cost, or you can say at the cost of whatever we are sharing with the agent for that transaction, right? So there's a commission sharing that happens. So the CAC LTV concept is absolutely relevant, and we look at it religiously. I mean, we look at all the cohorts, just like you would look at in any other domain. I think one of the things about this is also, these are, because they are agents and they are frequent sellers, right? You get to see also frequent transactions, which otherwise in an insurance type of domain you may not see, right? Like how many products, maybe they'll buy 5 products over 5 years, right? From an insurance standpoint. So you get to see a slightly you can influence a lot more, I would say, in terms of activity levels and so on at an agent level, and try to bring that ratio right in terms of CAC, LTV to CAC.
No, I just wanted to actually follow up on Rajesh's question, so related, but just to understand the split of acquisition right now between the B2B or digital channels versus through agents.
in our business. So we are more B2B2C focused. So pretty much 95% plus of our business comes through B2B2C.
Sorry, I meant digital versus physical agents,
Ah,
digital partnerships.
yeah. So it's a, I think 60-40 split between digital and physical for us.
And
But
if
again,
I
that
may,
depends on, I mean, so we've gone through different ranges of that, with being more physical and being more digital. I'm just telling you a number right now.
Sure.
There's not much, to understand from there, except that you got to watch, to Rajesh's question, you got to watch the CAC and the LTV from
Yeah.
these channels. They are very different, and they vary by, of course, channel, they vary by region, they vary by product category. So lots of variability there that one needs to account for and figure out what are profitable agents and what's the best way to acquire them.
Could you talk a little bit about, you mentioned that you were able to grow that agent network super fast using some level of technology, etc. Could you talk a little bit about what you meant there in terms of using technology to grow them?
Grow the network.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like we have agents in 17,000 pin codes, practically every part of the country, right? And their journey starts by downloading the app and getting onboarded. If you guys have seen maybe Uber driver app, for example, right, where you just download it and get onboarded, it's a very similar experience, but in a category which is a lot more complex in terms of its requirements and so on. So we build that kind of experience. So there is almost 90% of the stuff. In fact, actually, an agent can do 100% of the stuff, but like I was saying earlier, they don't. They may want to talk to somebody just to feel good because it's a transactional financial kind of relationship they're getting into. So the onboarding otherwise can be fully digital as well.
But basically, the whole agent acquisition process was digital through digital marketing and engagement.
Yeah, that's why I said we also do other models like physical acquisition as well. It's not, like I said, 60-40 is the kind of split right now.
Yeah, so hi. So we also essentially have two apps. One is for the members and another for the agents. So since we are dealing with distribution of financial products with the agents, how important is actually working on the fraud prevention? So because I mean,
Yeah.
that becomes an issue with the agents. That's first question. Secondly,
Yeah, it's important. Okay, so you have to invest in technologies that identify frauds and blacklist actors, and also identify patterns which you can see, which are indicative of fraud, right? So in our case, if there was a certain level of premium that they were booking, for example, right, below a certain level, there are signals like that. I'm just trying to tell you that yes, you have to look at the data. You will run into fraud, and you will have to learn in terms of what to avoid and how to catch it.
okay, sure. And lastly, I mean, since there are companies like, let's say, Spice Money or Echo who also have agents on the field, how do you see, I mean, them as there are there competition of some sorts because they are also distribution of financial products. So how do you see them? Or is the market big enough?
Yeah, market is large. Market is very large. Yeah. So there are many players, a lot of traditional players who are doing this. I think there are still. I still feel there are opportunities, in terms of building out this kind of distribution. Especially what I talked about earlier, as well, in terms of product creation, there are opportunities, and those can be. I think that's a little bit more of that has happened in the lending space, for example, than in the insurance space because of mainly regulatory issues in terms of just, creating new product. I mean, even lending had its many regulatory issues that came later, but in the case of IRDA, at least the regulator is very strict about what gets out as a product and is called an insurance product and who can create it and how does it get approved before it gets created. So some of that hasn't happened. So a company like Turtlemint wants to do many things and move fast. Insurers, who are the manufacturers, right, have their own challenges in terms of putting products out and the whole process and approval and so on. So that's
Yeah, hi Anand. I just wanted to mention we are a B2C company, empowering retail investors more on stocks and mutual funds in terms of learning and data analytics.
yeah.
So taking a cue from what the statement you said that you are also empowering banks, whether that's a B2B model or a B2C model. I was just trying to think what kind of collaboration we at Stockage can have with maybe Turtlemint, uh, if there is anything which can work out.
Yeah, I don't know. So we are also, like I said, partnering with other players to get into our non-core categories through a partnership model. So beyond insurance, we have a partnership model. So we can maybe offline discuss if there's anything.
All right. So my question was the other way around, like whether we can enable insurance products to our customers.
Yeah. So you can, right? So there are so when I talked about banks is a classic example, right? Banks are selling insurance to their customers and we are empowering them on that journey. It's a very similar thing in your case as well, where you're distributing some wealth product and on that front we've done a lot of work. So in our case, for example, talking about another B2B2C model, which is where you're not working with the individual agents who need software, who need a lot of apps and so on. You are working with, let's say, larger companies. They are more interested in APIs and maybe specialized services like claim handling for their customers, for example, right? And that's how we have plugged into players in the digital ecosystem, fintechs, e-commerce players. We have about 50 partners in India and the Middle East, where we run the whole insurance program for these partners end to end. So their primary business may be something else, right? Like they're selling, let's say it's a car classifieds platform, right? They're doing their own thing in terms of buying, selling of cars or related products. Now they can use our platform to enable insurance there for their customers in a seamless manner. There are health tech companies who we are working with, fintech companies we are working with. So across the ecosystem, there are several players like that, and we do. I mean, that's for us. Right now it's a small market in this digital models, but we strongly believe that in 3 to 4 years it can grow really as better products get created, which suit that channel and that purchase funnel of those partners.
Yeah. Hi, Anand. I had this question about innovations happening in the insurance space, and what's your views and opinion about how much innovation is happening, and what kind of innovation is required so that the overall market increases and the penetration of usage of insurance, or like you said, right, insurance, associating positive emotions with insurance. Why do they need it? So are there enough innovation happening on technology front, on education front, on policies front, and as a company, how you are contributing to that?
So I just tell you a context. It's another Zoom session in itself.
Okay.
Innovation in insurance, but there are basically, you can think of it in 4 buckets. One is distribution, where we've been playing very solidly. How do you get products to customers? Second is in product creation. How do you create more relevant products, which are maybe more designed for a particular channel or a customer segment. The third piece of this is underwriting. How can you make the underwriting faster or better, right? I mean, alternate data sets, for example, could they be used in terms of underwriting insurance? So the whole underwriting experience. And then the fourth major piece is the claims experience, where right now things are extremely broken, and typical customers experience in health or life or even motor for that matter is not really. So these are kind of the four major buckets in which innovation is happening. There are many insurtechs as well trying
Yeah.
to address each of these.
Yeah, one follow-up question if I can ask, Sachin. So you mentioned this innovations happening. So I want to understand, are these innovations still happening in silos among the companies, or are there a collaborative effort towards increasing the overall? Because we know in India compared to other countries, the insurance penetration is very low. So is there a collaborative effort that let's increase the overall market, or is it still happening as a company? I want to grow my customer base and let me innovate in my process, either to process innovation or tech innovation.
Yeah, I think there is collaboration uh, between players. So insurers is you know it takes time. You have to work hard to get and many of the things, because product creation is only allowed to for the insurer. You have to figure that piece out in terms of who could be a good partner for you. But there's a sandbox also in insurance that IRDA has allowed, and now they're also allowing sandbox entries at any time. It was earlier a little cumbersome process, once a year kind of application process, but now it's a revolving sort of sandbox. So there's opportunity for innovation. And also, I think all the regulators together, and IRDA is also part of it, have created a sandbox where you can create product propositions across multiple product categories.
Sure, thank you.
Anand, something out of this domain, wanted to understand your fundraising, how easy was it, from the starting stage to continuous, the journey has been pretty, for us, journey seems to be pretty tough. So if you can share your experience, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally sympathize with you. I mean, in terms of the funding environment right now, I don't know how. I'm assuming at the early stages as well, it's quite tough. So, I mean, we also went through a couple of those cycles. One of the positives of our business model was that, like, unlike a B2C business model, it was not very high cash burning. I mean, that's one of the advantages, because your CACs are not that high. Or if you're otherwise in insurance, you would have even a 15,000-20,000 rupee CAC to get a customer online, right? Here that's not the case, so that was helpful. But on the other hand, I think when we started, we also ran into this issue where there was skepticism about B2B2C. It was more about B2C. There were many players out there, and so on, and the community believed that insurance will move online, like airline ticketing has, for example, right? So those were the early days. But later on, as as we got some traction and success, it changed. Of course, the focus initially was very different from the initial set of investors, and later on it changed to more of unit economics and numbers and so on. Yeah.
I do, Suchir. So hi, Anand. This is Nikhil from LiveWell. We are building a protection-focused life insurance company. We have applied for our license. We do believe protection is a space which can be dominated, can be built around, especially with alternative data has been used for underwriting and so on. I wanted to get your experience of working with agents. Why do agents don't sell protection? And what do you think will actually enable them to look at protection products more favorably as part of a value proposition to consumers?
Yeah. So I think a little bit of that is, by the way, I would say on our platform, agents, about half of the product transactions are protection products being sold. Okay, so it's a fair bit compared to the overall industry. And I think it's also got to do with just, we make it available on the platform, we make it easy for them to offer it, right? Versus traditionally, whoever they have dealt with, maybe insurance companies or whatever. So I think there is, but the problem is the same. I mean, the ticket sizes on investment products are much larger, and therefore the revenue pools are much larger there. So that's one of the things where their effort goes into that. And selling an insurance product is an effort, right? I mean, typical agent probably sells a couple of policies in a month, right? So you want to maximize your income there. On protection, it's hard to get because once the year ends, your premiums you're not getting a return on your premiums. I think it's a bit of that. But I think as people become more aware, the consumer, this category could be built out through better consumer awareness, and that's what probably is helping us in getting to better numbers.
Sure. And just one last question on if you were to request any of your top insurers to innovate on protection, what would be your request on the product front or on the services?
Yeah, I do feel standalone selling that product is a challenge because you can never feel that product. I mean, your family will feel it once you're dead, but you cannot feel the product, right? And I think anything that can be done on that front and is going to make it more interesting and help with the push.
Thank you, Anand. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you taking out your time today and really insightful for us, not, like about the insurance sector and what you shared on the B2B2C model. I'm sure a lot of people will find good learnings from here, how to take it, scale, and learn from your journey also, that maybe sometimes we just need to try something different. Any last thoughts from your side, and then we can just close it. Yeah.
No, I think I enjoyed the interaction, good set of questions and curiosity, I think, in terms of insurance and also the business model as well. I'm assuming you guys are in the very early stages of building out your product and business and so on. So, this is the most challenging and also maybe the most fun time. So while you're working hard and so on, make sure you're enjoying it, because the journey is long. I mean, that's what when we started out, we thought, okay, maybe this is a 5-year, 6-year journey and you get there. But, and we've been in it now for 8 years and, people say, okay, it actually takes 12 to 14 years in an India context, to build a great enduring company. So you have a long journey. So make sure you're enjoying it, as you're going through it, and all the best to everyone.